This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, everybody.
Well, I don't care if it's the wrong spot. Because
you're in the middle.
On Discord right now. Okay, on Discord, I'm on the far right. So I'm just pointing this way because you guys are on the right. So Ricky Widmer, Dave Oster with me. We are doing another Discord video chat again, week 3 of the coronavirus outbreak, and we are again doing this from home. I miss the studio dearly and our little mouse friends, but we are still through.
Friends or friend?
It was at least 2.
Were there 2? That was the same one.
No.
If you think there's one mice in that place.
One mice?
One mouse?
A mouse in the house?
One meat? But anyway, we'll be talking today about the Atlanta Hawks, which prospects best fit them in the NBA draft, and then the Detroit Pistons as well. We'll be covering 2 teams this week with the prospects because we've done these types of videos before, but we've never made it through all 30 NBA teams because there's actually been basketball to talk about. So we might make it through all 30 teams, or at least all 30 first-round picks this year. So I'm happy to announce that. And then after that, we'll be welcoming in our patron Jake to talk about the Sixers, talk about where they're going to go if this season ends. If not, what's the outlook going to be? You know, should there be huge roster overhaul changes? Should there be a changing of the coach? We'll talk about all that today on the Fast Break Podcast. If you want to be like Jake, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. You could join us at that $10 tier, and you can join us on a Zoom conference call, or you can call into the studio.
That's on my work used Zoom yesterday.
Just make sure not to take it with you to the bathroom.
Yes. Yeah. My mom did a 2-hour Zoom conference last night with her friends. So it seems like Zoom's really picking up, guys.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Invest into Zoom. Anyways, we'll talk about prospects now and the Atlanta Hawks. We kind of talked about them a lot recently. Our mock draft 3.0 is going to post today. And in that, the Hawks were the number 1 pick.
I'll do it right
now. We were talking about Anthony Edwards versus LaMelo Ball versus James Wiseman. Who's going to fit them at number 1? So we'll have a little bit of an abbreviated version of that conversation here. Dave, when you look at them, if they get the number 1 overall pick, because we'll talk about, them in the top 10 and which players in the top 10 really fit them. And, even if they went into a deeper, steal, we'll talk about all those guys. But if they're drafting number 1, why is Anthony Edwards the best fit? Because we all had Anthony Edwards going number 1 to them in our mock draft.
He just seems like the perfect, Robin to Trae Young's Batman. And I hesitated there for a second. It's like, is it Batman Robin kind of dynamic there? I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out. But what I do know is he gives them a good scoring punch and someone else who can ball handle and create for themselves, which is something this Hawks team desperately needed. Because if the ball wasn't coming out of Trae Young's hands, their offense was not moving.
Yeah, and I think, Ricky, too, we debated LaMelo Ball for that point too, because he might end up being a guy that can move the ball for this team, along with possibly being a second scorer off of Trae Young, who already can put up 30 points, and he's got a unique body type. And we know you're a huge LaMelo Ball fan, but you still had Anthony Edwards going to the Hawks here. What was the main reason for that?
Well, I mean, the main reason was I'm not drafting LaMelo Ball just to be a backup behind Trae Young. I can go to free agency and get a backup if I need to. Or I can with my second round pick, because there's guys later on like a Lewis Jr., like a Cassius Winston, like a Marcus Howard that I can use with that second overall pick to get a guy that can be a good backup guard. The one that I think was the big one was James Wiseman. Like, if this team didn't make the Capella deal, I would have had James Wiseman number 1. But because they have Capella now, matching him up with John Collins, it's kind of like, in my mind, out of the 3, if the Hawks got number 1, it's an if de facto Edwards over anyone else.
Yeah, I agree to that.
Yeah, I think Wiseman's the best player in this draft. We talked about that before. He's number 1 on my big board. But the Capella thing is interesting, and that takes off Onyeka Okongwu as well. If we're not going to take the best big in this draft in James Wiseman, we're definitely not going to take Onyeka Okongwu, or at least even if it goes to the 6th pick, if they fall down to the 6th pick, I really don't think they're going to be looking for bigs. Dave, the one thing, though, is the idea of, are they going to move away from John Collins? Because he has performed very well, and we talked about that in the mock draft as well. But there still is, does he fit? Is he a good enough big? Also, is he a good enough shooter as well? Because maybe their idea is we want as much space as possible for Trae Young and Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter and Kevin Huerter to work on the outside, or our top draft pick like an Anthony Edwards. We want enough room for them to move and drive and attack. So do you think John Collins is a fit here on this team, or do you think the 4 will be a need that they're going to need to address at some point? I don't think they're probably going to address it in this draft, but at some point, do you think that John Collins might be moved so they can go to a smaller, faster lineup?
I don't know that it makes a whole lot of sense to move someone with the productivity of John Collins off of this young team yet. I think they've got to at least give him, I mean, it sounds crazy. Put up like 22 and 10, no big deal. I get it. They're not winning games, but give him one more season. I think that there's probably going to be max deals for him if he continues this style of play available. He's too good at being an offensive machine, and he's added that 3-point shot. He's added some good consistency to his offensive game. So I don't see them moving away from him purely from like a style fit. I don't know if there's going to be value out there if they want to swing a deal on his last year of his rookie deal, maybe, but it would be so bizarre. Like I can't see him being moved on from at this point in time.
Yeah, it's just curious because of his lack of defensive abilities, but you look at him, and especially I think it was the last 28 games we were talking about. It hasn't changed because there's been no basketball. But he was averaging like 24 and 12, I think above 35% from 3. So at least offensively, we know he works, and he is extremely athletic, and he isn't that big. Like, he is pretty wide, which is a credit to him, but he is, I think, only like 6'9". I could be remembering it wrong, but he does play smaller. He's not one of these bigger 4s. That is incapable of moving around and incapable of putting the ball on the ground. Like, he is a very fluid athlete for his size. So that, I think, is the best thing that fits him in this system, is the fact that he can play the 4, but he's not going to be a liability, at least speed-wise, offensively. Let's move into the other things. All right. Like, is there a best case scenario for them, Ricky? I know you kind of like this, like, it's actually better if they don't get the number 1 overall pick, because that way they can draft LaMelo Ball, or they actually like, Denny Avdia on this team more than I like, Edwards or Ball or Wiseman. We've seen them trade back before as well. The Luka Doncic and Trae Young trade, where they also got Cam Reddish. Where is this team looking, right? What's this team's biggest need? Is there a player out just the Hawks too?
If, let's say, for the sake of this argument, let's say basketball, the regular season gets canceled and playoffs happen, because we don't even know how many games will be played when we get back. To me, the best case scenario is 1, 2, 3. This one has the widest range to me because of what you said. This is one where if I'm 1, I'm drafting, but if I'm 2 and 3, and I could take LaMelo or I could take James Wiseman, because there are teams like the Warriors, like the Pistons, like the Knicks, who either really need a point guard or could really need a big like James Wiseman. You could get a deal done here where I can move back, because 2 of the guys that I'm thinking about that are outside of the top 3 that we always talk about is, could they just add a Denny Avdia and say, fuck it, we're not like even at number 1, like, you know what, Edwards is great, he fits the 2, but you know what, screw it, we're just going to add shooters, and we're going to that 3 well, and we're going to play either Hunter or Cam or Denny at the 2, and have 2 of them out there and just go shooter on shooter, and give options for Trae to pass to. Or, hey, we are going to move on from John Collins, we don't know what his future is, let's go Obi Toppin. Like, those are 2 guys where if they're 2 or 3, I can trade back, get some more picks, and then get either Abdia or Obi Toppin.
You balance things out here, Ricky. You're going to say something crazy like Denny playing the 2, and then you're like, if they do need to move on, they can I would put out of the 3, I think I would fit Cam at the 2. Out of Hunter, Cam, and Denny. Yeah, maybe the guy who has the athleticism to play the 2 and guard the 2 should be at the 2. Oh, maybe crazy thoughts here.
I'm gonna ask you this, Dave. Though, kind of the same question. I want to get into the idea of Toppin or Collins. a little bit later. I'm going to write it down too, just so I don't forget, because I probably will. But same question to you in the fact of, if there is a guy out there that isn't, Wiseman, Edwards, or Ball, is there a perfect fit out there? Is Avdia a perfect fit for them? Is Toppin a perfect fit for them? Is Killian Hayes or, RJ Hampton a perfect fit for them? Is there any perfect fit you see out there for the Atlanta Hawks?
This year, outside of Anthony Edwards, I don't know that a perfect fit exists in the top, 6 for them. I have a strong feeling like Tyrese Halliburton could be the next best fit for them. I know he's traditionally a point guard, but I can definitely see him playing the 2 guard. He's got great size. He doesn't need to have the ball in his hands. He can facilitate, though. He can knock down shots left wide open. So, he's someone who would be a nice complementary defensive piece next to Trae Young. Outside of that, RJ Hampton, I've seen his value bounce anywhere from, 7 to 17. I really don't know where he's at, and I don't know what NBA GMs are going to value him as with the little that we've seen out of him. So he'd be a little bit harder for me to place. The Obi Toppin thing's kind of interesting, though, because he is such a productive player in college, and he is still continuing to grow. John Collins came into the league, and in 3 years, he's better than Jabari Parker, the guy who was supposed to be this athletic hype beast, power forward, just 100% offense. John Collins was I'm just better than him already. No problems, no worries. 3 years in the league, he's done shit that Jabari wishes he actually did at his peak. So it's impressive what they've gotten out of him. That's why I'd be so surprised to see them turn on that. But if they were to pad their depth at the wing position, I could see Obi Toppin making a lot of sense there.
And for that too, I want to before we compare the players, because I don't think you're actually upgrading here. I think the one reason they would do this, though, is the fact that you don't want to re-sign Collins, right? And you want to have a guy that you can implement and attack automatically on 5 years of rookie deal for them. So you'd have Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, Trae Young, and Obi Toppin all on rookie deals, and then that way you only have Capella for $16 million. I know right now $16 million seems crazy in coronavirus world, but at least in the NBA terms, and we might see the salary cap go down because of this. We're not sure what that whole ramifications are. We're also too stupid to actually understand what this means. But I think at least with this, they do have the ability of setting themselves up so young and then possibly making one of those massive push for these big free agents in 2021, which would be absolutely huge. So I think that it's not really off the table. We see they wanted to go out and get Andre Drummond. They wanted to go spend all the money that they're going to have this year. And maybe they don't want to, tie themselves down too much because they know Trae Young's going to be a max cap guy, right? But outside of that, Cam Reddish may get a max, but I highly doubt that.
It's so far away. That's the crazy thing. 2023. Think about that.
And that's the thing is they'll have at least 2 years before they have to make any of those moves. And I think that it is fair that they might want to give this group more time. And I think getting rid of Collins and then bringing in a guy like Obi Toppin isn't that crazy. So let's talk about it. John Collins versus Obi Toppin. I know, Dave, you're pretty adamant on Obi Toppin playing the 4. Which Collins plays right now. And we know that Obi Toppin's 6'9", same with John Collins. I think John Collins is more athletic. Obi Toppin probably a better shooter, but even then, John Collins shot 40% from the field.
He may have been before this year, but this year he's proven it.
Is it a downgrade, Obi Toppin for John Collins? And in the long run, with all the contract stuff that we laid out, worth it?
It is a downgrade. I'll openly admit it's a downgrade because Obi Toppin doing what he's doing in college as an older player. He is not a freshman, so he's got physicals. He's able to use his body to dominate people. He can get to the rim at will. At the NBA level, I don't know if he'll be able to do the same things to the same levels of incredible efficiency. His field goal percentage in college is 63%. It's insane. It flat out is insane. And I look at what he's the way he attacks and his offensive skill set. Yes, he would probably still be able to get you, 15 to 18 points a night if he came into the NBA on a team that was looking for a score. So yes, he wouldn't lose that much from John Collins, but the production and how he gets his buckets, I'm just so hesitant to walk away from Collins. But if the goal is save your money, go out and attract the biggest free agents in this next upcoming free agency class, then yeah, I could see him go for Obi Toppin. And it, again, defensively, wash. Offensively, I think it might take Obi Toppin a year or two to get to where John Collins is at, and that's if he, continues to bust his ass. Mm-hmm. Like it's not a given that Obi Toppin will be as good as John Collins is right now.
Well, and that's why with me, it's like I don't know. You can say that it would for sure be a step down because both these guys are 22, and the only way I make this trade, because you'd have to trade away Collins and then draft Toppin, is if I think Toppin is going to progress quickly. Because the thing that I like is if he's going to be an impact player on this team sooner rather than later, then you're looking at what? Like Collins you'd have to pay when he's 25, 3 years, theoretically 3 years before his prime. With Obi Toppin, you'd have a 5-year contract. 27 is when he's coming up on that deal. So it's more of like, for me, I think it could be beneficial to go Toppin because then it could be, okay, we either overpay for John Collins if you don't think he's going to live up in his prime to that deal. And with Obi Toppin, when he gets to the end, all right, this is what we know he is. He's right at his prime. Is he worth it? Rather than, all right, he's got 2 years until he's in his prime. Should we give him that deal now? So it's like that plays into it too of where he's going to be age-wise at the end of his rookie deal.
Yeah, I understand the idea of what you're bringing up, age-wise and all that stuff, the fact that they're pretty much the same age. But I think it's a little bit different because obviously Toppin is a guy that hasn't had a full run yet. He only had 2 years at Dayton. Still was an older freshman as well. I believe he transferred. I'm not fully up on his background, but I know he's got the 2 years at Dayton. Also, congrats for him being named the Naismith Player of the Year. I thought it should have been Luka Garza, but whatever. Doesn't really matter in the end.
Not Luka.
It's Luka Garza. It's Luka Garza.
Is
what
it?
Are you talking about?
Is it really?
Yeah, it's Luka Garza. Sorry, I've been watching college basketball, boys.
Feel like we're just saying
it is Luka Garza.
God, I hate myself. I'm the person who had him on the big board.
Luka, baby.
Yeah. But anyways, I thought it should have went to Luka Garza. But I think the biggest thing that makes me want to say stick with Collins is the fact that, I mean, if you're comparing them now, right? Like, what did John Collins do as a sophomore and what did Obi Toppin do as a sophomore, right? In their years in college. And you look at the per 40, John Collins, 62% from the field, didn't take any threes, 74% from the line, 14.8 rebounds, and 28.8 points. And that's in the ACC. And then the A10 this year, Obi Toppin shot 63% from the field, so Toppin beats him by a percentage. He shot 39% from three, which, again, Collins wasn't doing this at 19. Toppin was. 9.5 boards for Toppin, 2.7 assists. He beats Collins with the assist numbers, but he is not even close when it comes to the rebound numbers. Again, 14 for Collins compared to 9.5 for Toppin. And then point-wise, 25.3 points. So, I mean, Collins, yes, he was on a worse team, so there was more opportunity for him to score, but I don't know if I want to give up on a 22-year-old, and yes, you might be overpaying in some ways, but I don't know if I want to give up on a 22-year-old that's now added a three-point shot over the past really 3 years, has become this type of shooter and is this athletic. He might not be that great of a defender, but I do think that his block numbers, especially going next to Clint Capella, will skyrocket. I think they'll be making a mistake trading John Collins for pretty much Obi Toppin, whatever, if are swapping them. I think it'd be a huge mistake because you're getting a worse player, and yes, he'd be cheaper, but it's not a guarantee that anyone's going to want to come to Atlanta.
I know that's the other thing I was going to bring up, the fact that you're going to gamble on trying to land a big name like Giannis out there. It's those guys, and no offense, it's just to a small market team, it's a stretch to imagine. And the next thing after, like, okay, what's your market size is who's your players who are friends with him? Like, do you have any of those connections behind the scenes that will help you land a big name like that? And I don't know that Trae Young and Giannis are close. I don't know that like guys like that have that relationship going. So it would be a stretch to see one of the biggest names in basketball go there just because they could get a big payday. I think, they have a good chance of landing someone, like say Gordon Hayward, was looking for a long-term deal after next year, like, yeah, I could see them paying like Gordon Hayward a shit ton of money to be their wing of the, and be the guy who leads this team, to the next step and gets them over the hump of being a bad young team to being, a spooky, team going into the playoffs with a veteran leader there. I just don't know that they're going to land the big guy. And yeah, for me, I go back to John Collins, his progression as a player and his offensive skill set. And I'm not saying he can't get better at defense. As the other thing, I don't want to cap him because he is still young and he is athletic. It's just a matter of if he learns to position himself better, if he moves his feet a little bit better on coming around screens, like there are little things he can do to keep building to his game. And I've seen nothing in his game that says he's unwilling to work to improve. So I don't know. The only way it works out in my mind is if they have a trade partner set for John Collins that will land him someone they really love.
Well, the one thing I'll bring in Sam from Twitch chat, he says, he said, how much value does John Collins have? I'm going to take it and twist it of not just that, of what team would trade for John Collins. Like, who's a team right now that could be like, yes, I want John Collins on my team?
Well, I think one thing, and we'll talk about that, but I think the other thing too is they technically don't even need to trade him. Like, I mean, they could just let him walk. So right. I don't think we necessarily need to find a trade partner for
Theoretically,
him.
I want to get something for him though.
Yeah, but I don't think it's crazy to say that the Hawks just let him go and cut him loose. Teams that would fit him.
I'm flipping through right now.
Because I'm just usually a guy where it's like, I'd be the GM of like, I ain't letting you walk. I ain't letting no one walk. I'm trying to get something out of everybody. Yeah, basically. If I can get something from you, I'm going to get something for you.
Like, could you imagine
the Wizards would be interesting?
They got Rui. You don't need John Collins.
Yeah, but I mean, John Collins is a better player.
Yeah, he is. But
I think he also probably is younger.
The New York Knicks, they always need power forwards, right?
Julius Randle needs company. He needs someone else to throw up empty stats.
Bobby, Julius, Taj. But you said the Nets, Dave?
In the East, the Nets have a clear hole at the 4. I don't know what pieces they have that would get them like the value back because I think Spence is worth more than John Collins.
Yes, but I think the thing that you can argue then with the Nets is they have a clear hole at the 4, yes. But, I mean, then again, KD's coming back, right?
Yeah, so but I mean, like, you got at the 1, KD at the 3. I mean, that's my thought. But
with KD then, and we're going to get into a little Nets talk here, he is getting older. He's coming off a major injury. Do you think that putting him at the 4 might be a better position to guard a little bit of slower players?
I guess.
I think that's where his career arc is taking him.
I understand that's your logic there, and you're fine, but like he was one of the better defenders in the NBA too. He was like a top 10 defensive player, like before his injuries. Like that's crazy. Yeah. Like he's literally the best scorer in the game, and then he was a top 10 defender. Like he's 7 feet tall and a wing. Like
I'm not bashing.
He wants to be. Damn it.
You could play Kevin Durant.
He could be a point guard. Doesn't matter. He's Kevin Durant.
You could play him at the 1. I don't really care. I'm just throwing it out there that he might be a 4.
How about at some point. Here's a spicy one. Miles Turner for John Collins swap because it helps no one.
I don't know if I hate it.
I was going to throw out a different team.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help the Hawks. I'll say that because then you have Capella and Turner, both great rim protectors, but
and then Obi Toppin, who you would draft.
Yeah, but they're not great defenders outside of that. So I don't think Turner.
Miles Turner can go out to the perimeter and guard.
He can, but I don't think it's better than Collins. Right, like he's a very great rim protector, but I don't know if he is athletic.
Fair point.
Why
are we skipping the obvious?
Seems to be disconnected. What's the obvious? The Bulls,
the Celtics, the Boston Celtics.
That's a good point. I mean, you get a guy that automatically can grab you boards, something that missed, but then again, you don't need him to play the 5. He can play, he can play
small ball 5 stretch out, or he can play the 4. We already talked about Gordon Hayward being a great swapping candidate for them. I'm just saying, boys, it writes itself after a while.
See, the team I was looking at was...
And they've got a ton of young assets, too. Like, if teams want to get a little spicy with it, they've got a bunch of young kids who they can't even afford to play because they don't have roster spots because they're competing at the top of the East.
Yeah, I didn't even think about them. I was thinking the Pelicans, only because Derek Favors is up at the end of the year. What are they going to do there? Of course, you've got Zion and Jackson Hayes. But with Jackson Hayes, we haven't seen a ton of him this regular season. So how is he going to develop into year two?
Mistakes, but he's so exciting.
Totally. But I mean, John Collins could add some veteran experience that he's more of a veteran than Zion or Hayes, and it can help out both teams because then the Hawks can either get like a Josh Hart or a Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who are cheaper deals. Nickeil Alexander hasn't looked great, but could be like, hey, the backup 2 guard or the 2 guard if they decide to, because if they're trading John Collins, I'm assuming then they're drafting Obi Toppin. Like, it isn't going to be like, oh, we're going to draft a 2 and then trade John Collins.
I could see them definitely not do. I could see them not doing that. I mean, I could see them just playing Hunter at the 4, and then Reddish at the 3, and then Herter at the 2, or whoever they draft. You know, move them around. I mean, if they like Isaac Okoro, a guy that's pretty much a blank slate and is already playing down there in the South. I wouldn't be surprised if they looked at Isaac Okoro. The thing that I wanted to bring up though, what the fuck are we talking about?
John Collins
trading John Collins for some offer.
It was the Hawks trading John Collins. What was the point I was going to go off of?
The Celtics. Dave brought up the Celtics, and you really like that because I have.
What were you talking about, Ricky?
What?
What were you talking about?
I was talking about the Pelicans because Derek Favors is moving.
Yes. Oh, wait. So that was it. So with the Pelicans thing, I don't know if I necessarily hate that because Zion, like Favor when he played Pelicans games, like that was like they were insanely better when Favors was playing. Yeah. When Zion was playing, they were also insanely better. But those two didn't work together on the floor, at least from when I was watching it. The advanced stats could be could speak against me. I could be wrong, at least advanced stat wise, but at least watching, for doing the eye test. Zion didn't work well with Favors. I mean, it just clogged the lane too much. Favors doesn't have the ability to stretch the floor. Zion really didn't in the NBA hit those 4 threes, but outside of that, he's Ben Simmons, but better. But yeah, I think that getting a stretch floor like Collins wouldn't be insane. I mean, they brought in Nicola Melli for that reason, and he didn't have enough time to really get acquainted, and they had so many injuries that it really didn't give a starting lineup to him. And I don't really think he's going to be that great anyways. But he's a fine bench for. But if you go out and get Collins, that could absolutely solve a lot of your issues. The issue though then with that is if you're going to have to play Ingram, if you're bringing back Lonzo Ball, you're going to have to sign Zion at some point. Where's the money for Collins? And that's the issue, I think, with the Pelicans. Let's go back to the Hawks in the draft, though. I don't hate this departure, though. I simmed it real quick, and the Hawks fell all the way down to 7, right?
Oof.
So if they miss out on Avdia, if they miss out on Edwards, Wiseman, Ball, let's even throw in Toppin, right? Let's just say the Warriors take them or whatever. Where do they go, right? If Toppin's off the board, if Ball's off the board, Wiseman's off the board, Edwards is off the board, Avdia is off the board. Where are they going? Right? You mentioned Halliburton, Dave. Ricky, I'll go to you first. Is there a guy that sticks out there that they could fit on this team?
I'm either trading or I'm reaching. And the 2 guys I'm either reaching for are both 2 guards. I'm either going Tyrese Maxey or I'm reaching all the way for Devin Vassell. Those are the 2 guys I'm looking at. Because, I mean, you could go RJ Hampton. My only concern is that how would RJ and Trey work together? Because to me, RJ is not a spot up shooter. He's more of a driver, and having 2 drivers in that backcourt, I don't know theoretically how that would work. So that's why I would kind of go away from it. Isaac Okoro, I don't think fits entirety, but yet again, you could have it to where, like I said, we're just going to go with a 3. Cam's now our 2, and we've added another 3 to DeAndre Hunter. But I would probably look for a trade to move back. But I might reach and go with a Tyrese Maxey at 7.
Interesting. I don't know if he's a top 10 pick in my daily thing.
I didn't have him as a top 10 pick. I haven't had him as a top 10 pick in a bit, I don't think. I'm not pulling up my mock, though, so I'm lazy. I like Halliburton's fit. Maxey's so streaky. Like, at times, he looks like he's an absolute star, though. But I just don't know how much of that he can do off ball. In this offense, like Trae Young needs like 40% usage, just the dumbest percentage of usage you've ever seen. That's what I want Trae Young to have.
Yeah, Sean had him at 15.
Dave had him 15, 16, and 21.
Yeah.
And then you had him 15. I had him the highest at 12 last time.
He's a good potential player, but he has not shown any sense of consistency, no shot. So like he's an upside pick and he's a gamble. And I don't know that I can have another year where my team just sucks. I'll be honest. I know this year a lot of people want to point at the John Collins timeout due to his drug suspension, and then Trae Young gets hurt for a little bit after that. So they really had a rough season. But like, I don't want to keep losing. It's not fun as someone who enjoys good basketball. Like, watch our team just get shit canned out there night after night. It's not fun. So if I'm at 7 and my board looks like it does, I would go for Halliburton. I would consider going for Vassell or Jaden McDaniels even. I think both those guys would definitely be in the conversation. It depends on what you want to do on the wing. Like Ricky's been talking about, if you want to move Cam to the 2, I think Herter can run a second unit decently well with a second ball handler, whether it is just Halliburton and Trae Young kind of switching off turns as the point guard with the second group as the other one rests. And then, like I said, you could go Vassell or McDaniels. It depends what you're looking for. Vassell fits that traditional 3-and-D wing. Like, he can knock down shots, he can drive. He can score from the outside consistently well. He plays good defense. Jaden McDaniels just got that extra little X factor to him of like, but he a long boy. He can be real good.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
scary good.
It also.
I think
go ahead,
just
Sean.
jump in real quick. I think along the idea of Jaden McDaniels, I think the guy that I'm looking at, and I know we keep talking about him, and he's a guy that keeps rising and rising and rising up my board. But if you're looking for a guy to be a wing player, right, and if you're just looking for straight potential, I think you got to look at Patrick Williams, right? 6'8", he's one of the younger players in this draft. We talked about the idea that maybe if he hits his massive peak, that he could be Kawhi. He seems like a natural basketball player. He still needs to add some muscle to himself. He still needs to add strength to his body, but I still think all of the tools are there. And his jumper's similar to Kawhi. I know it's crazy to talk this way, but
just saying his name out loud hurts.
Boardman gets paid.
You're the Hawks, right? Like you don't have, this idea of if we draft a guy this year, right, that we're going to be a playoff team. That's not happening for you. Right. So if you go out and take a shot at a guy that might not be, a potential player, but he could be a starter. Like if you go out and take a Halliburton, I think Halliburton's a starter, right? But he's 20 years old and he's already, a little bit later on into his progression where we've seen just a little bit of Patrick Williams, and he won't be 20 for 2 more years, right? I would love that ability of, all right, let's draft someone as young as possible. Let's build him up, kind of like Cam Reddish. And look at where Cam Reddish is now. Cam Reddish, obviously more of a complete basketball player than what Patrick Williams was. But I do think that I think that Patrick Williams should at least be in the conversation for them, especially if they fall past 7 or if they do trade back. I think Patrick Williams should be an option for them.
If they trade back, I think he'd be a great option for them.
Well, and the other thing you got to think about is if they're at 6 or 7, who jumped in front of them? And just me playing with Tankathon, I've got 3 different options of like things that could happen. You could have option A, which the top 5 in this case are the Kings jumped up to 1, the Warriors are at 2, Bulls, Knicks, and then the Cavs. Hawks are at 7 at this point, but it's like the Knicks, the Bulls, all these point guard teams, except for the Pistons, have now jumped in front of you. So it's like, who can I really trade with to move back? Because there's not a lot of teams under me that need point guards. Similar to option B, which the Kings don't have a miraculous move up, and it's just Knicks, Bulls, Wizards are the big movers. Yet again, who's under me? Or you could have the option of in the third one, the Hornets were the big ones that moved up. Spurs also moved up. Hey, I'm at 6, but there's teams like the Bulls at 9, the Knicks at 8, to where, all right, I can move back 2-3 spots to try to get a guy that's closer to the 8-9 range because there's not someone that either perfectly fits or I absolutely love at number 6, where the Hawks would be in this simulation of the lottery.
Yeah,
So it depends on who's above and below.
Value. Yeah, if you get a good value to dip back out from 5+ to 5 or 7 range to like late teens this year, and then like a protected next year or an extra second or something, like this is just a stupid young team. So I could see them continuing to just roll the dice and play the old process out, and just like, hey, the more lottery balls we got, the better shape we're going to be in.
And I do have one question.
If they settled and said, all right, we'll take a 3-and-D guy, like a Neesmith or a Vassell, I also don't think it would be a bad choice. Yeah, final thoughts, Ricky.
Yeah, the one thing, and this is, I was just like Googling Hawks and draft, and this was an article that was put out today by Sir Charles in Charge, where we didn't really talk about it. They think that in the top 5, LaMelo Ball should be the top target for the Hawks. And in this article, this was written by Quinn Allen, he says that a Ball Young backcourt would be scary. Is there something I'm missing where I don't know? I'm skeptic on a LaMelo Ball, Trae Young backcourt, and would it work? And would it be scary?
Well, one, I'm gonna push this to Dave. The big question of would a Young and Ball backcourt work? Because I think I'm too negative on LaMelo Ball. But what I will say is we did talk about this in our mock draft. So again, that's dropping today. So definitely go check that out. You could hear the full conversation between Wiseman versus Edwards versus Ball for us, for Hawks fans. So if you're a Hawks fan, you want to go see it, it's gonna be the first thing we talk about. You are the number 1 pick. If you have every option available to you, we ran through all of those things in our mock draft. So definitely go check that out. But Dave, I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me, at least, what would go wrong with the LaMelo Ball and Trae Young backcourt is the fact that none of them can play defense. That would be the worst backcourt defense in the history of the NBA. Yeah, no,
TLDR, you're 100% right. No defense, all turnstile. They need time, they need spacing, they need so much. Like I agree that Trae Young next to Ball could be interesting from an offensive standpoint. The opportunities it opens up for you would be pretty cool, having 2 elite passers back there. But like, we've yet to see Ball go full off ball and see what he can do, playing a more supportive role there. I don't know how well he would turn out right now. It just seems like he needs the ball in his hands to produce. So I would steer clear of that if I were them. I still think he's one of the highest upside players in the draft for a reason. He's going to be a top 3 pick because of that reason. But fit-wise, you've already got Trae Young there. I just think it might be digging yourself too deep of a well on the defensive end.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with that is that you already have, like, you're not drafting a better backcourt player, right? Trae Young is the best backcourt player that you can have coming out of this. He's better than Edwards. He's better than Halliburton. He's better than Ball. He's a better player, and he's a better passer than LaMelo is. He's a better shooter than LaMelo is. The only thing that he doesn't have is the size. That's the only thing that LaMelo Ball has over him. And LaMelo Ball is a great passer, probably the best passer in this draft, but he's nowhere near what Trae Young is. I mean, Trae Young was probably the best passer out of that class back in 2018, right? When was it, 2019? 2018?
It was Luka Doncic, Trae Young,
2018.
Yeah. I know the players.
I
know the players. I know the year. But I would say Trae Young's a better passer, but Luka Doncic is insanely creative. And I think it's just more of a thing to say, like, if he's the best passer, like, holy shit, he's in a class with Luka Doncic, and Luka Doncic is already that great of a passer. But, yeah, I don't think it works mainly because of the lack of defense there. And I think that you're really going to end up
Sam brings up a good point, though. Don't need defense when you're outscoring everybody.
Yeah, but the thing is,
score the most points, win the game.
What's Ball going to do off ball?
Exactly. Can he be efficient in that offense if Trae Young is leading it? Because I think Trae Young can be efficient off ball. I mean, we could just see, run the Isaiah Thomas playbook when he was with Boston.
Then why not have Trae Young be your off ball guy?
But the thing is then if you're going to have your offense run through Trae Ball off ball, why do you need that
Trae Ball
passer?
Trae Ball off ball.
If you're going to have Trae Young run off ball, then why do you need LaMelo Ball to pass it? Like, if you didn't have that great of a passer out in Boston, like, that would be my idea, is have him just run around screens, Trae Young, and just get him open threes. Like, that's his MO if he's playing off ball.
But he's already a better passer, so that leads you to are we going to sacrifice our offense to try to accommodate Ball in this offense?
You could just draft Anthony Edwards and run the same shit. Like, you don't need LaMelo Ball to have Trae Young play off ball. And he's already a better scorer than LaMelo Ball. So I don't see the upside. And alongside of that is, I think Edwards has a higher defensive ceiling because I think he's got the motor, or at least more of a motor than Ball does. Ball obviously has the wingspan and the size, but I think Edwards is a better fit for them.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Any final thoughts?
No.
All right, cool.